Hey everybody, this is Scott Graham, Extension entomologist, Alabama Cooperative Extension System at Auburn University. Today I'm here on the research station in Belmont in the Tennessee Valley. We've had some pretty good periods of hot, dry weather, and with that brings one of our induced pests of cotton, the two-spotted spider mite. So typically when we think of spider mites, building up in cotton, we think of two situations. One is primarily hot, dry weather. As I said, we've been in for the last couple of weeks, nearly a month, particularly in this part of the state. And another one is following applications of broad-spectrum insecticides that knock out all the beneficial insects but don't kill spider mites and can leave you with issues in the field. So historically, when we look at literature and spider mite issues in cotton, they've kind of started in field borders and worked their way into the field. In the last probably decade or so, we're starting to see some changes in that trend where now we're starting to see spider mites building within the field itself and spreading from there instead of starting on the borders. One of the things that we think has played a role in that is we've moved to no-till situations. We've started planting a lot of cover crops. We have a lot of good benefits with those systems. However, there are some issues. At times we don't get good burn down. We leave some weedy hosts in the field prior to planting, and the spider mites will build on those hosts, and then when they eventually dry down, they'll move into the cotton, and that's when we'll start to see some issues. Another thing, talking with Dr. Ron Smith, who's got a lot more historical knowledge than I do in the state of Alabama and cotton insect production in particular, is the move to the insecticide seed treatments and away from Aldicarb primarily. Ron has said in the past he can remember before and after Temic, and we didn't see spider mites during that period when we used it primarily as our early season control for thrips and things like that. Now that we've gone away from that a lot and we've moved into the seed treatments, we've lost some of the effects from that insecticide. So when we talk about scouting for spider mites, it's not like plant bugs or stink bugs. We don't use a drop cloth or a sweep net to look for spider mites. We're walking through and we're looking for symptoms from spider mites. So this will start as kind of a yellowish stippling on the leaves. It will eventually turn red and even purple as severity increases, and eventually you'll see defoliation. So these symptoms are pretty obvious when you see them. Sometimes when they're just starting, you've really got to be walking out in the field to see early symptoms. But when hot spots really develop and get heavy, you can see it from the roadside. You'll see just big defoliated parts of the field. So making treatment decisions can be somewhat difficult, really requires some professional judgment. Our threshold is just when you have obvious signs of mottling and mite injury in the field. So like I said, it kind of depends on weather patterns. If you're starting to see some mites develop and your cotton plants are starting to look stressed, you don't have any rain in the forecast for the next 7 to 10 days, you may want to go ahead and make an application. If you do have some rain in the forecast and you feel pretty good about your opportunity to get it, you may want to delay your application and see if you can get enough rain to beat the mites back and help your cotton plants to grow. So we've got a couple of different options in Alabama to control spider mites. Abamectin is probably the most economical option that we have. However, we do have some pockets of resistance across the cotton belt with that product, so that's something just to keep in mind. We also have things like Portal, Zill, and Oberon, which cost a little bit more but do provide good efficacy, good control of spider mites. And one other thing to note when we're talking about scouting for spider mites is sometimes when you're walking through the crop and you see very heavily damaged leaves, you may flip it over and not see any spider mites. And that could just be they've sucked all the juices out of that leaf. So sometimes it's better to sample the leaf above the most heavily damaged leaf, not the most heavily damaged leaf itself, as the spider mites may have crawled up and moved to a fresher leaf. Another little trick you can do to help look for spider mites on the leaf is flip it over so that the injury symptoms we generally see on top, but the mites themselves are on the underside of the leaf. If you have a hand lens or a loupe, that can help you see them. They're pretty small mites, but also if you expose them to the sun, it kind of agitates spider mites and they'll move around a little bit more. The adults are small, yellowish, creamy colored mites with 2 black spots on either side of their abdomen. So that's kind of what we're looking for when we're looking for spider mites.